All right, welcome everybody to the Big Douglas Show. It is a Wednesday, so we're getting prepared for the Eagles this week. Nobody better to do that with than with Athletic Eagles insider Zach Berman. Zach, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on your show.
Absolutely. Thanks for doing this. It's early on a Wednesday. What usually are the Eagles into on Wednesdays? What will you be looking for at practice today?
Well, I'll be honest with you. The Eagles played Monday night, so they're not going to have a full practice today, from what I understand. So really, it's a matter of them getting their legs underneath them, transitioning from Monday's game to obviously a big game against Washington this week. But and you see availability and whatnot. But as far as practice, they're not going to have a typical practice today.
On your way to the Athletic covering the Eagles, did I look right? You had a stop at the Washington Post?
I did, yes. I loved my time there. I covered University of Virginia and Virginia Tech, and covered the Washington football team from time to time when the beat writers needed a fill-in.
Sure. Let's see. You grew up a fan of the Eagles. I'm curious, does that help or hinder you? Or at least you grew up in Philadelphia.
I grew up in Philadelphia. It helps me in the sense that I have institutional knowledge of the franchise, of the team, of the moments. But as far as the coverage, I covered the Giants for 2 years. I was in Washington, like you said. Never been in Dallas, but the job's the job, no matter where you live.
That's right. You got to the Athletic covering the Eagles in 2019 for the Super Bowl run, and then you wrote a book, Underdog, is that right? About the
Well, so before I was at the Athletic, I was at the Philadelphia Inquirer, and I covered the Eagles for 7 years at the Inquirer, and then I'm on my 4th season at the Athletic. So my 11th year overall covering the Eagles.
You also have the podcast Birds with Friends. I'm curious, do you prefer writing or podcasting?
So I enjoy both of them for their own, for their own unique styles, if you will. I've kind of learned that what matters is the content more than the distribution method. More experienced as a writer, but in 2022, people are accessing content in many different ways, and the podcast is fun. It's a chance to kind of provide information and entertainment in a different form.
Let's see. We've gotten through the scripted question portions of the show. 6.5-point underdogs at this point. Last I saw, that number likely gets a point bigger, I'd bet. It's a big number on the road, but Eagles looked really good Monday night. Mm-hmm. What are they saying after that win? Is this one? It's interesting. Sometimes when a team loses real bad, they throw it out and say, let's move on. Sometimes when you win that big, and I haven't seen the Eagles win that big since they did it to Washington when Vic was there. What are the teams saying about what they can take away from that win and where they're at now?
Well, it was obviously a huge win for them, right? They played well on both sides of the ball, but there's things for them to clean up. And the reality in the NFL is every week's a season, right? I mean, if they go out and lay an egg in Washington, then I imagine Monday morning won't be very pleasant for them here. So the bottom line is a reset each week. The previous week doesn't let you win or lose the following week. And that's probably the approach that the Eagles will take. That said, what they showed on the field Monday night was promising and puts them in a pretty good position here, right? When you're playing that well on both sides of the ball, when Jalen Hurts, when you're getting that type of production from the quarterback, the defense had 3 interceptions. There's a lot to like with the way the Eagles are playing right now.
There's a lot to like about Jalen Hurts. He's a winner to me. Those that watch this show regularly know I'm a lifelong Bulldog man, so very familiar with Hurts for a long time now. I didn't think his arm was that good. And I didn't think he showed a lot of accuracy and a lot of poise on where to get the ball to. The legs we knew about, are you surprised about his arm?
I'm not surprised by it. It's more I was waiting to see if it would come, right? In terms of the efficiency with which he plays, the decision-making, because it's been inconsistent. I mean, for me to say I'm surprised by it would suggest that I didn't know he had it in him. And it was just the thing you kept hearing from inside the organization is that he has every intangible you could want. and that whatever his upside is, he would hit it because of the way he's wired. You just didn't know what that upside was. And look, I'm not saying he's going to look every week the way he looked on Monday, but if you look at Jalen Hurts' track record going back to college, he gets better, right? I mean, he was better at Oklahoma than he was at Alabama. He was better his second year with the Eagles than he was his first year with the Eagles. And so the Eagles are betting on the person as much as they are the player. And I think that has a lot to do with the progress he's shown is that, I mean, behind the scenes, this guy works. And that's what they really like about him.
Talking about surprise, Howie Roseman went forth this offseason and really added a lot of weapons in the way that you don't see teams do in the NFL, except unless where you go back, baby, to the last Eagles run at adding so much talent. What have they said about the additions? They're set up for the future, still have a couple of first-round picks next year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Big offseason for them, and the additions are paying off. Those guys are producing right away for the team.
Yeah, this is, Howie Roseman, if you look at his track record, right, he's aggressive. He's strategic, right? He's not one of these guys who sits on his hands. And actually, that's why it surprised me a bit early in the offseason when the Eagles weren't as aggressive as I shouldn't say weren't as aggressive, when they didn't address some of the holes that I expected them to address. But the other thing that Roseman's shown in his time is that the roster building process is not limited to the first week of free agency and draft night, right? I mean, the Eagles added James Bradbury during the summer. They traded for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson before the season started. Then obviously you talk about trading for A.J. Brown on draft night. They signed Hassan Reddick in free agency. They made some other under the radar moves. Kaiser White's a guy that they signed. They were pretty nimble in the draft, adding a pick next year, right? So Howie has what he's always done well, in my opinion, is he knows how to build a roster, right? When it's sometimes maintaining that roster and the decisions that you make when you're at the top that have at times come back to, I don't want to say haunt him, but haven't produced the way he wanted to produce. But when it comes to building a roster, he's been really good at it, and he's showing that this season.
You think this team wants to be able to hang their hat on offense or defense? Which do you think is out front for the organization right now?
Well, I think both, obviously, but they have an offensive-minded coach. Jeffrey Lurie, as an owner, focuses. He believes in offense. In that the head coaches the last 4 head coaches he's hired have come from the offensive side of the ball, right? I wouldn't say they want to hang their hat on offense or defense. I would say they want to hang their hat on the line of scrimmage. That's where they invest their resources. That's where they put their draft picks. That's where they put a lot of their big dollars, is winning the line of scrimmage. And there's a lot of comments you can make about this team that might be subjective, or that you could argue. I think most football fans would say this is one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. And it's not a surprise when you look at the investments that they make in the position.
Certainly maybe the best tackle duo in the league. I'll agree with you. And Jason Kelce appears to age backwards at some point. I took a look at some of the snap count numbers. I was surprised. Darius Slay, I think, had the least amount of snaps for corners, and I was surprised that Jordan Davis only played on 34% of the snaps. Is that the plan, or was that just the way that the defensive personnel worked out compared to the offense that the Vikings put out on the field?
For Jordan Davis right now, that seems to be the plan, is especially early in the season. He's playing in certain personnel packages. He was not a 70 snap a game or 60 snap a game player at Georgia either, right? So this is kind of the way they're using him right now, and maybe I assume he'll grow into a bigger role. But at this point in the season, this is how they're playing him. As far as Slay, Slay's their starting corner. He came off the field late in the game, but that's nothing there's nothing to worry about. He won NFC Defensive Player of the Week this week. He'll be on the field for every meaningful snap.
I didn't pay attention enough, I guess. Does he Does the defense, will he follow Terry McLaurin on Sunday, or are they stay on the side?
That remains to be seen. I would doubt it, but they have two corners. They have two real good corners in Bradbury and Slay. But it's something he's done in the past if Gannon wants him to do it.
Okay, a couple more. I know you're short on time here. What is the key to the Eagles beating Washington on Sunday?
I would say controlling the line of scrimmage, right? That jumps out. I've seen so many Carson Wentz games, and I've seen most of Carson Wentz's career games, and he can get hot, right? But he can also make plays that come back to haunt you. So trying on defense, trying to force Carson Wentz into mistakes, right? Trying to make him make passes that come back to bite him. I think that's probably going to be the plan on defense, but he can also get hot. But offensively, control the line of scrimmage. Spread the ball around to your skill guys, and then try to get Jalen Hurts into space.
If Washington pulls the win out, what will have they done? What do the Eagles? What can they pick on to pull off the upset on Sunday in your mind?
Well, the Eagles played real well defensively against Minnesota, but they've been susceptible in the back end, and if they play soft coverage, if Carson gets rid of the ball quickly, he can take advantage of that, right? But it hasn't always been Carson's MO to get rid of the ball quickly. So I would say, if the quick passing game works, if Carson can hit the layups, if you will. And I know that's a term you've used. Then that Detroit was able to move the ball against the Eagles in Week 1. That was mainly from a few big runs, but still, I think that unless the Eagles play defense the way they did against Minnesota consistently, then you can probably hurt them in the short passing game.
Last two. Do you expect a high scoring game on Sunday?
I haven't yet dug enough into Washington. You would know better than me. I think the Eagles offense will put up points, right? That's what they've done. And just looking at the score of Washington's first two games, they've given up some points, right? So my guess is that if Washington's in this game, it's going to be a high scoring game, because I think that the Eagles have such a balanced offense. They can beat you in so many different ways that unless Jalen regresses this week, they're going to put up points.
Care to throw out an early week score prediction?
I'm not there yet, to be honest with you. You are actually the first Washington person I've spoken to this week. And the first time I've really looked ahead to this week. I was wrapping up the Vikings game all day yesterday. Looking at that tape, working through some notes from that one. I am heading to the team facility in a few minutes, and that's when I'll start to look ahead to Washington. But honestly, after a Monday night game, I spent Tuesday kind of digging into that previous game. So I'm not there yet. What's it, a 6.5 point spread you said? Which actually I think that was a little big in terms of that number. That might be
it started out at 4.5 before the Monday night game.
Yeah. So I think the Eagles are going to win this game, but I don't have a score prediction for you yet.
Zach, I really appreciate it. You can find his work at The Athletic, and make sure to catch out the podcast. When does the podcast come out? It just depends, or you have set times during the week?
Yeah, so on a typical week, we are doing Tuesday, Thursday, and then post-game Sunday. And this is not a typical week because of the Monday game. So we'll be on Thursday, but most weeks you can catch us Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday.
Zach, man, I appreciate it. Have a lot of fun today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.